The Rothari Dominion had ruled the stars for 1,000 years. Their fleets swept through galaxies like wildfire, leaving silence in their wake. No species had ever stopped them. No one dared to try. Admiral Solvex stood on the bridge of the Dreadspire, his massive command ship. He was tall, with gray-green skin that shimmered like wet stone, and 6 glowing eyes that missed nothing. Around him, alien officers worked in silence, their movements smooth and rehearsed. Solvex didn't need to speak often. His presence alone was enough. The ship floated through a quiet region of space called the Whisper Expanse. It was dark, empty, and silent, perfect for testing a new long-range sensor array. But something had appeared. Something strange. "Admiral," said one of his officers, a thin fungus being with glowing spores. "We've detected an unidentified signal. Weak, slow, drifting." Solvex turned toward the screen. The signal blinked softly like a distant heartbeat. "Is it a trap?" he asked calmly. "Too weak to be one," the officer replied. "It's just there, like it's waiting." Solvex leaned forward, intrigued. "Source: small ship, 1 light minute away, drifting with minimal power. Design unknown. Visual." The screen zoomed in. A small white vessel floated alone in the darkness. No weapons visible. No energy spikes. No movement. The crew murmured. It looked like a relic, smooth, simple, and almost delicate. Too basic to be military. "Primitive," someone muttered. "Human," said another officer. Solvex raised an eyebrow. "Humans? I thought they went silent decades ago." "They did. That's what makes this strange." The Meridian, as the human ship was later identified, had no active defense systems. No shields. No escort. Just a slow signal repeating from a data node on its side. Solvex narrowed his eyes. "Bring us closer," he ordered. The Dreadspire turned silently in space, its engines barely humming. Even a minor movement from this ship could shatter a moon. As it approached the Meridian, Solvex watched for any reaction. There was none. "Send a team," he said. A squad of elite Rothari soldiers boarded the small ship. Each wore armor that could resist a nuclear blast. They entered through a side hatch without resistance. "Report," Solvex said into the comms. A pause. Then one voice replied. "It's empty, sir. Lights are dim. No sign of life. Everything's quiet." Another pause. "Wait, something's wrong. These walls, they weren't like this before. They're static. Silence." Solvex frowned. "Team 2 go in. Find them." Team 2 launched. Same result. Contact lost 5 minutes after boarding. No alarms. No signals. Just silence. One officer looked uneasy. "Permission to destroy the vessel, sir?" Solvex shook his head. "Not yet. It hasn't fired a shot. It's barely alive. And it has our soldiers. I want answers first." More drones were sent. Their footage showed twisting hallways that bent in impossible ways. Rooms that hadn't been their secons before. And then one drone captured something chilling. A man. Human. Calm. Standing upside down on the ceiling, as if gravity had been flipped just for him. He smiled at the drone. And then the feed cut. Now the bridge of the Dreadspire was quiet. Even the background hum of conversation had stopped. Eyes were wide. Hands still. Every officer felt it, the wrongness. Something was deeply, truly wrong. "Admiral," said his science chief slowly. "This ship, it's not reacting. It's studying." Solvex nodded slightly, his expression unreadable. "It's bait," he said at last. "Sir?" another asked. "The ship, the signal, the silence. It's not a trap to kill us. It's to watch us, to learn how we respond." He stared at the frozen image of the human smiling at the drone. That calm face, that quiet confidence. "Humans didn't go extinct," Solvex said softly. "They went quiet. On purpose." The bridge crew looked at him in shock. "Pull us back," he ordered. Now. The engines ignited. The Dreadspire turned, retreating. The Meridian didn't follow. It just floated, still and silent, like a spider waiting in a web. Back in his quarters, Solvex reviewed the footage again and again. The smile, the gravity shift, the impossible corridors. Then he saw something new. A blinking light in the background. Not random. It was a pattern. A countdown. And it was almost at 0. Admiral Solvex stared at the blinking light on the screen. The countdown. 16 seconds left. He didn't know what it was counting down to, but his instincts screamed at him to move. "Get us out of this sector," he barked. The bridge crew jumped into action. Orders flew across the command deck. Engines fired up. The Dreadspire turned sharply, pulling away from the small, silent human ship drifting behind them. 10 seconds. "Prepare shields," Solvex ordered. Maximum strength. His second-in-command, a four-armed Rothari named Joran, was already shouting at the engineers. "All systems forward. Brace for impact." 5 seconds. The entire bridge watched the screen. The Meridian sat perfectly still. No lights, no movement, just that one blinking light. 3, 2, 1. Nothing happened. Silence. No explosion. No energy burst. Nothing. Everyone waited. A few seconds passed. A few more. Then, "Admiral," said the science officer, his voice shaking, "I'm detecting shifts." "Shifts?" Solvex demanded. "Gravity anomalies, not here, not on our ship, but in the space around us. Something is folding." The lights flickered. The floor vibrated. Outside the ship, stars began to twist. "Sir," another officer said, "our rear sensors just went blind." Solvex rushed to the console. Behind them, space looked wrong. It shimmered like water. Then from that warped shimmer, something stepped through. A ship. No ships. 1, then 2, then 5, then 12. They emerged one by one from what looked like cracks in space. Black ships. Sharp edges. No running lights. No engine glow. They looked like shadows pulled from a nightmare. "What are those?" Joran whispered. "Human vessels," the sensor chief replied. "Same design as the Meridian, but these are fully armed." The lead ship was enormous, almost the size of the Dreadspire. It hovered in space, completely silent. A message came through. No warning, no encryption, just a voice, cold and clear. "This is Admiral Ilara Vance of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are trespassing in restricted space. Stand down." The voice was calm, like someone reading a weather report. No emotion. Solvex clenched his fists. Weapons online. Lock targets. "They haven't fired," Joran said. "Maybe it's a bluff." Solvex shook his head. That decoy ship was a message. Now they're showing us they were watching all along. Another human voice came through, this time from a different ship. "Hello again, Admiral Solvex," said a man's voice. "You remember the Meridian, don't you?" It was the man from the drone footage, the one who smiled upside down. Solvex didn't respond. "We wanted to see how you'd react," the human continued. "You passed the first test. You didn't panic. That's good. You're smarter than most." The line went silent again. The screen remained full of those dark human warships, unmoving, waiting. "They're playing with us," Joran said, voice tight. "Just like we play with primitives." "No," Solvex said slowly. "They're doing something worse. They're watching, judging." Another officer called out, "More ships entering the system. At least 20 more human vessels. They're surrounding us." Solvex's heart pounded. "Shields up," he ordered. "But do not fire. Not yet." He watched as the ships completed their formation. No alarms. No movement. Just perfect coordination. "How did they get so many ships here without detection?" Joran asked. The science officer answered softly, "They were already here. They've been here the whole time." A chill spread through the bridge. Solvex took a slow breath. "Open a channel." The human face appeared again, Admiral Vance. Her eyes were sharp and calculating. "We don't want war," she said. "But we don't run from it either. Your empire made that mistake before. Not this time." Solvex raised his chin. You think you can threaten the Dominion with a few ships? Vance smiled slightly. Not a few. This is one of 12 fleets. And all 12 are in position. The screen flickered. Dozens of other alien sectors came online, showing similar scenes. Rothery fleets surrounded by human ships. What do you want? Solvex asked. To end your empire, Vance said, cold as ice. Before you end anyone else's. Solvex stared at her. The calm, the control, the precision. This wasn't desperation. This was execution. He had walked into a net woven with perfect patience. And now the trap was closing. Admiral Solvex stood frozen, his 6 eyes locked on the main screen. The quiet voice of Admiral Vance still echoed in his mind. To end your empire. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. 12 human fleets across different star systems? How? The Rothery Dominion controlled everything from here to the outer spiral arms. No one had ever dared challenge them, not for centuries. Admiral, said Joran quietly. Orders. Solvex didn't speak. He watched the screens, switching between sectors. Every Rothery battle group was surrounded, just like his. The humans had planned this. Not rushed. Not sloppy. This was something else. It was perfect. How did we not see this coming? He finally asked, more to himself than anyone else. The science officer answered in a low voice. We stopped looking. What? We stopped watching them. When humans went quiet decades ago, we thought they'd given up. But maybe they were just hiding. Solvex didn't reply. Outside the Dreadspire, the human ships didn't move. Their weapons weren't glowing. No shields, no threats, just silence. And that was worse. Sir, said the communications officer, receiving a signal. Coded. Not standard human encryption. Military grade. Open it. The message wasn't a video. It was a data stream, packed with Rothery fleet schematics, command charts, tactics, and communication frequencies. Every weakness laid bare. Where did they get this? Joran gasped. They've been watching us, Solvex said. Listening. Studying. The bridge crew said nothing. For the first time in Solvex's long career, no one had a plan. He'd always known what to do. Fire. Intimidate. Crush. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was a mirror. And what he saw looking back was fear. Another transmission came in. This one was Admiral Vance again. We've given your fleets the chance to surrender. Many already have. Some are resisting. That will not end well for them. Solvex gritted his teeth. You humans act so calm, he snapped. But we've ruled this galaxy for generations. You think this small victory changes that? Vance's expression didn't change. It's not a victory, she said. Not yet. It's a warning. And if you don't listen, it becomes an ending. The signal cut out. Solvex turned to his crew. How are they blocking our long-range comms? Jammed, said the tech officer. On multiple layers. Not just interference. They're using our own systems to bounce fake signals. We can't call for reinforcements. Joran looked shaken. They've shut down our escape before firing a shot. On the screen, the human fleet still hadn't moved. Solvex's fingers curled around the edge of the command rail. They want us to break first. Then another officer shouted, Admiral! Movement! Sector 8. Everyone turned to the side screen. One of the smaller Rothery warships, Bladeclaw, was powering up weapons. The captain must have lost patience. Solvex opened a direct line to them. Bladeclaw, stand down. Do not fire. No response. The ship fired. A full plasma barrage at the nearest human destroyer. The shot landed. A direct hit. The human ship didn't move. The plasma flared against something invisible. A bubble of blue light. Then the light vanished. No damage. Seconds later, the human ship responded. A single, focused beam of energy. It sliced the Bladeclaw in half. There was no explosion. Just silence. Then, slowly, the ship drifted apart into 2 broken pieces. No fire. No drama. Just precision. The bridge fell into stunned silence. Salvex watched the debris float through the void. That ship had served in 100 battles. Gone in 1 second. They're not trying to scare us, Joran whispered. They're showing us what comes next. Salvex nodded slowly. This wasn't an invasion. It was a message. A new power had arrived, and it didn't want territory. It wanted to end tyranny. Admiral, said the sensor chief, voice trembling. 2 more human ships just uncloaked. Behind us. Salvex turned back to the main screen. Now they were surrounded. No room to run. No room to fight. Only one choice left. His claws gripped the railing. For the first time, the great predator of the Rothery felt something unfamiliar. Cornered. He could feel his crew watching him, waiting for him to roar, to fight, to lead. But there were no enemies to charge at. Only shadows. Quiet. Waiting. This was no battlefield. It was a cage. And the humans had built it one quiet step at a time. Admiral Salvex stood on the bridge of the Dreadspire, surrounded by silence. No one moved. No one spoke. The human ships floated in the void, still and quiet, forming a perfect ring around the Dominion's most feared warship. This was supposed to be impossible. Salvex had conquered over 30 systems. He had destroyed fleets larger than the one now surrounding him. But this wasn't war. It was something colder, smarter. He turned to Joran, his second in command. Status of the fleet? Joran's voice was quiet. 10 of our ships are surrounded. No movement. All weapons powered down. The rest, silent. Silent. They're not responding, sir. Salvex knew what that meant. Some were waiting. Others were thinking. Rothery captains were proud. But now that pride was cracking. Another officer spoke. We're receiving new transmissions. From where? Other battle groups. All over the Dominion. Play it. The screen changed. A Rothery captain appeared. His face bruised, his bridge in flames. Static crackled through his words. Ambushed, from the dark. Weapons we can't track. They knew our formations. Retreating now can't. The screen went dark. Then another appeared. A different fleet. Same result. Another. Same story. One by one, Salvex watched the Dominion's proud fleets fall apart. Not through massive wars. Through disassembly. The humans weren't fighting head-on. They were cutting the Dominion apart from the inside. And they had been doing it quietly. How long has this been happening? Salvex asked. The science officer checked his console. At least 3 months. Maybe longer. They've been moving in shadows. Watching us. Tagging fleets. Learning. We never noticed? They didn't want to be seen. And we weren't looking. Salvex clenched his jaw. This wasn't a war they were ready for. This was what the humans did best now. They waited. A new transmission appeared. This time it wasn't a captain. It was a civilian from one of the outer colonies. A scientist. Rothery. She was broadcasting a desperate message. They took the research station. No damage. No deaths. They just shut it down. Took the data. Left messages behind. Warnings. They said if we keep pushing outward, they'll come back. Stronger. She looked terrified. And I believe them. Salvex watched as the screen turned black again. He had been so sure. So confident. The humans were weak, he thought. Soft. Always fighting each other, always arguing. That's what the old report said. But maybe that had changed. Maybe they had learned from war. Maybe they had learned from him. Sir, said the tech officer, the human ship is hailing us again. Salvex didn't answer right away. Then he gave a small nod. Put it through. Admiral Vance appeared again. Her face calm, her eyes cold. You've seen what we can do, she said. We could have attacked without warning. But we didn't. That's not our way. Salvex didn't speak. We're giving you a chance. This is your moment, Salvex. End it. Walk away from the edge. You think you can scare me into surrender? He growled. No, Vance replied. I think you're smart enough to know you've already lost. Behind her, more ships decloaked. Bigger ones. some unlike anything the Dominion had ever seen. They shimmered with tech Solvex couldn't understand. Shields that bent light. Engines that made no sound. "Where did you get this technology?" he asked, voice low. "We didn't get it," she said. "We built it. After your empire killed our scientists. After your ships destroyed our stations. After you wiped out the Orion colony without a word." Solvex paused. That colony. He remembered it. One of many. Easy. Soft targets. He had forgotten it the day after. But the humans hadn't. "You thought we were silent because we were afraid," Vance said. "We were silent because we were preparing." Her voice was soft now. "You wanted to rule the galaxy. We wanted to survive it." For a moment nothing happened. Then Solvex looked around at his crew. Joran looked away. The others lowered their heads. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were survivors. He finally spoke. "And if I refuse?" Vance's eyes hardened. "Then your name becomes history. The kind no one remembers kindly." Solvex looked down at his clawed hand. It trembled slightly. He closed his eyes. The predator in him screamed to fight. But the leader in him knew better. He opened his eyes and whispered, "What are your terms?" Vance didn't smile. She just nodded. And the war, which had started without a sound, began to end the same way. Quietly. The bridge of the Dreadspire felt different now. The silence wasn't tense anymore. It was heavy, like the air itself had weight. Admiral Solvex stood still, facing the screen where Admiral Vance had just given him a chance. A single way out. Surrender. It was a word he had never used. Never even considered. But now, the future of the Rothri Dominion rested on what he said next. He turned to his crew. Joran met his eyes but said nothing. The others avoided his gaze. These were the best officers in the fleet. They had followed him through war after war. But none of them looked ready to die today. Solvex stepped forward and spoke. Slowly. Clearly. "Tell me your conditions." Vance's voice came back over the channel. "All Rothri fleets will power down their weapons and submit for inspection. No more expansion. No more forced conquests. Your empire's borders will be frozen. Your prisoners will be freed. And your colonies will be monitored. We will stay in orbit until it's done." Solvex felt the words hit him like a slow punch. No more conquests. No more growth. For the Dominion, that was like death. "You want to chain us," he said bitterly. "No," Vance replied. "We want peace. You can still exist. But not as tyrants." Solvex's jaw clenched. He wanted to lash out, to order a final strike, to go down in fire. But he didn't. He couldn't. Not when he knew what would happen. The humans weren't bluffing. He had seen it. Their weapons. Their silence. Their patience. They had studied his people like hunters stalk prey. And now they were standing right behind him. He took a breath. "Give us time to notify the other fleets," he said. "You have 3 hours," Vance replied. "Then we begin cleanup. One way or another." The line went quiet again. Solvex turned to his crew. "Send the signal. All fleets. Code 96. Joran's eyes widened. "Surrender code?" "Yes." There was no ceremony. No speeches. Just a soft chime from the console as the signal was sent. All across the galaxy, Rothri commanders received it. And one by one, they powered down their weapons. Some argued. Some cried. Others simply sat down in silence. Admiral Solvex stepped away from the command platform and lowered himself into his chair. His hands rested on the armrests, claws twitching slightly. His mind was racing. He had led armies. He had destroyed worlds. And now he had ended it all with one word. "Sir," said the tech officer. "Receiving new visual feed." "From where?" "Orbit above Rother Prime." Solvex looked up. The screen shifted. His homeworld appeared, green oceans, tall cities, the glowing towers of the central fortress. Then human ships appeared around it. Dozens. All in perfect formation. Their weapons weren't firing. They didn't need to. "This is the new reality," Solvex said quietly. Joran sat down next to him, unsure what to say. Finally, he asked, "Do you think we'll survive this?" Solvex nodded slowly. "Yes, but not as rulers, as something else. Something we were never trained to be." Joran thought for a moment. "Equals?" Solvex didn't answer. Not right away. He just stared at the screen. Hours passed. The humans didn't leave. They moved carefully, ship by ship, into Rothery space. Not destroying. Not boasting. Just watching. Making sure. Holding the line. Across Dominion space, something changed. The stars no longer felt like they belonged to the Rothery alone. Now they were shared. Later, a final message arrived from Admiral Vance. Today was not revenge. It was a warning. If your people choose peace, we will leave you alone. But if you rise again to conquer, we'll be waiting. Solvex didn't reply. He simply closed the message. The war that had never truly started had ended. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the Rothery Dominion would have to find a new purpose. Something more than war. As the stars continued to turn, Solvex looked out at the black void and said softly, "They were never prey, were they?" Joran shook his head. "No, Admiral. They were the ones hunting us all along." The days that followed felt strange. The Dreadspire didn't move. Neither did the other Rothery ships. They simply floated there in space, surrounded by human vessels. The galaxy, once full of noise and fire, was suddenly quiet. Admiral Solvex sat in his command chair, staring at the screen. It still showed Earth's fleet in perfect formation. Dozens of ships, motionless, powerful, and patient. They didn't press forward. They didn't issue new demands. They were simply there, like sentinels, waiting to see if the Dominion would keep its word. Across the bridge, no one spoke unless necessary. Crew members whispered. Officers moved slower than usual. Even the lights felt dimmer. Joran broke the silence first. "It's strange," he said. "Not being feared." Solvex glanced at him. "Not yet. We're not feared now. But we're not trusted either." "They're watching us," Joran said, nodding toward the human fleet. Solvex leaned forward. "They've always been watching. We just never noticed." Reports kept coming in from across Rothery space. Fleets had surrendered. Some commanders were relieved. Others resisted and were quickly disarmed. There were no mass battles. No cities burned. The humans didn't want destruction. They wanted change. One message came from a young captain stationed in the Outer Rim. They appeared without warning. No weapons drawn. Just a message. "Power down and prepare for inspection." We followed the order. Then they scanned our systems, asked for our prisoner lists, and left. That was it. Solvex shook his head in disbelief. "They don't even stay." Joran looked at him. "They don't have to. They know we've already lost." Every time Solvex read another report, it became clearer. The humans weren't here to rule. They were here to end ruling, at least the kind the Dominion had practiced for centuries. The science officer, a thin, soft-spoken being named Kel, approached. "Admiral," Kel said, "I've been analyzing human ship patterns." "What did you find?" "They're everywhere. Even in sectors we thought were dead space. They've surrounded every supply route, every trade lane, every hidden outpost. But that's not the strange part." "Go on," Solvex said. "They didn't build these fleets yesterday. This took years. Maybe longer." Solvex sat back. "They've been planning this for a long time." Kel nodded. "At least a decade. Probably more." Solvex remembered the Orion colony. He remembered destroying it without effort. No resistance. No warning. "They never forgot," he whispered. "While we laughed, they built." The screen beeped. A transmission request from the human ship Echo 3. Solvex accepted. The face that appeared was younger than Vance's. A human officer with a calm, focused expression. "This is Commander Elias Cade, acting liaison for the Terran Observation Command. We'll be sending representatives to each Dominion fleet to assist with the transition." Solvex narrowed his eyes. "Transition?" "Yes," Cade said. "Peace enforcement. De-escalation protocols. You'll keep your ships. Your people will not be harmed. But you will not expand. You will not enslave. And if you break the agreement, you'll be back, Solvex finished. Cade gave a small nod. Exactly. Solvex studied the man. You're not like us. No, Cade replied. But we used to be. That's why we're watching so closely. The screen went dark. Solvex sat in silence for a long time. Then he stood. Joran, he said. Assemble the officers. In minutes, the bridge was full. All eyes turned to their admiral. Solvex looked at them, each face filled with confusion, guilt, and worry. For 1,000 years, he began, we ruled through strength. We believed no one could match us. We were wrong. He paced slowly. These humans, they fought wars with themselves for centuries. They turned battle into art. Then they looked at the stars and saw us. He stopped walking. And they didn't strike right away. They waited. They watched. They learned. And then they acted. Not with rage. Not with cruelty. But with purpose. He looked at each of his officers. The old way is over. What comes next, I don't know. But we will not be the ones to decide it anymore. No one argued. Because deep down, they all knew he was right. Outside, the human ships stayed still. Like guardians of a new galaxy. The Dominion hadn't just lost a war. They had lost the right to ignore their enemies. And for the first time in their long history, they would have to learn how to listen. Admiral Solvex stood in his quarters, staring out the large window that overlooked the stars. His reflection in the glass looked tired, older than he remembered. His uniform felt heavy on his shoulders, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. The Rothari Dominion was no longer what it had been. Not feared. Not unchallenged. Not free to conquer as it pleased. Outside, the human ships remained silent. Watchful. They hadn't fired again. They hadn't attacked. They didn't need to. The message had already been delivered. Clear and sharp. We see you. We stopped you. And we'll do it again if we must. A soft chime broke the quiet. Solvex turned to see Joran enter, holding a datapad. Admiral, he said, the last inspection team has finished. They've taken copies of our ship logs, our prisoner lists, and weapons manifests. And, Solvex asked, they left without a word. Solvex nodded. They never stay longer than they must. No, Joran agreed. They're not here to punish us, just to make sure we don't go back to our old ways. He handed over the datapad. There's something else. Solvex took it and read the message. It was brief. A final note from Admiral Vance herself. The observation phase will last 5 standard years. We will be present. We will be patient. What happens after that depends on you. He read it twice, then set it down. 5 years. 5 years to prove they could live in peace. No invasions. No forced rule. No slaves. Could they do it? Would they? He wasn't sure. But for the first time, he was willing to try. Later, Solvex walked the halls of the Dreadspire. The ship felt different now. Quieter. The crew still wore their uniforms, but there was no fire in their step. They weren't preparing for battle. They were adjusting. Learning. He passed by the training decks. Soldiers now ran drills not on how to storm a city, but how to provide aid, how to protect without destroying. In the ship's labs, scientists worked alongside holograms left behind by the humans, technical documents, ideas, peaceful technology, medicine, power generation, things the Dominion had always stolen from others. Now they had a chance to build their own. Solvex entered the briefing room, where a few young officers were watching a human documentary left behind in the ship's memory banks. It showed Earth's history, the rise and fall of their own empires, civil wars, revolutions, unity, division, growth, pain. But through it all, humans had one pattern. They learned, they adapted, and when they set their minds to something, they finished it. Solvex watched for a moment. A human leader in the recording once said, "Strength means little without purpose. Power means nothing without restraint." He turned and left the room. Back on the bridge, the stars stretched out in every direction. So many worlds. So many chances to do things differently now. Joran joined him again. Do you think they'll ever leave? Solvex shook his head. Not completely. Not for a long time. They don't trust us. Would you? No, Joran said quietly. But maybe someday. The screen blinked. Another message came through. This time from Earth itself. A single sentence. Let this be the beginning of something better. Solvex stared at the words. He wasn't sure if the Dominion could become something better. But maybe, just maybe, they could stop being something worse. Outside, the Terran ships began to move. Slowly, quietly, not leaving, just watching from a little farther away. It was not a retreat. It was a reminder. The hunters had shown themselves. And the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Solvex turned from the screen and spoke not just to his crew, but to the future. No more conquest, he said. No more lies. From this day forward, we earn our place among the stars. And so, the Rothari Dominion, once the terror of the galaxy, took its first quiet step into something new. Not through fire, not through fear, but through a silence that finally meant peace.